Today, some positive news about the economy, even with concerns about the president's tariffs. The Commerce Department says retail sales actually bounced back in June after falling in May. Specifically, they rose 6% last month after a near 1% drop the month before. Economists are obviously closely watching consumer behavior as President Trump's tariffs begin to drive up prices of some goods and services. Separate data out today shows the jobs market also remains resilient as new applications for employment benefits fell for the fifth straight week. CNN Business and Politics.
In the latest CNN poll, obviously Democrats want to try to do something about this, but Democrats are seeing their lowest approval ratings in history. And that includes the party's own supporters saying this, that it's unfavorable, the Democratic Party as a whole. What do you think the problem is with the Democratic Party?
Look, I mean, you can see right now we are fighting. We are clearly fighting what they are doing by cutting people's health care, by taking away money from national security, by taking away money from emergency preparedness. And I think they know how wildly unpopular these things are. That's what we're doing. We are focusing on what our vision is, how we're hoping to actually grow an economy that works for everybody, to keep America safe, to keep America secure, to have good jobs here for people. And they're focused on everything else right now because they don't want people to focus on what they're actually doing.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about the Communist News Network, the China News Network, aka CNN, issuing their comrades, the Democrat Party, more dire warnings about the midterms, that Democrats are on track to not only lose, right, to not win, but the GOP could gain a significant amount of seats. Now, I find this to be hilarious because this comes as Democrats are basically claiming that the midterms are rigged. And I told you guys that they're saying that the midterms are rigged because they know that they really don't have a good shot right now, right? Like, things aren't looking good for Democrats with an approval rating at an all-time low, which, again, I think is what is really dragging them down when it comes to their ability to revive their party. They don't stand for anything except being against Trump. And that just has not worked out for the Democrats. And I don't think that that's going to translate into midterm success, which, again, is what is being predicted by CNN's data analysts based off the trends that we've seen in the past.
This race to the last time we saw big Democratic surge, which was what, like 2006 and 2018?
Don't worry, Leslie Nielsen. I won't call you Shirley. Look, the bottom line is this. Democrats are behind their 2006 and 2018 paces when it comes to the generic congressional ballot. What are we talking about here? All right, the Democrats versus the Republicans on the generic congressional ballot, the margins. Look at where we are now. Democrats are ahead, but by just 2 points. Look at where Democrats were already ahead by in 2017. They were behind by 7 points. How about 2005 on the generic congressional ballot? Ahead by 7 points, ahead by 7 points. And now they're only ahead by 2 points. Their lead is less than half of where it was in either 2017 or 2005 in July of those years, the year before the midterm election. Yes, Donald Trump may be unpopular, but Democrats have not come anywhere close to sealing the deal at this particular point.
Yeah, wave looks very different.
Yes.
All right, this is the generic ballot test. This is when you test people in a generic question. Of course, the House races aren't generic. There are 435 of them. What happens when you go race by race?
What happens when you go race by race? Well, it's the same idea. Okay, House seat ratings with a GOP president like back in 2005 and, of course, 2017. More net pickup seat chances. Well, last time around, look at that. Democrats were ahead by 33 seats. How about in 2005? Democrats were ahead by 7 seats. What's going on right now? It's actually Republicans. Actually, Republicans with more net pickup chances at plus 12, according to the Cook Political Report, when you add in the likelies, the leans, and the toss-up races. So it's not just on the generic ballot where Democrats are behind their 2017 and 2005 pace. It's actually when it comes seat by seat, you see that, at least at this particular point, Republicans actually have more net pickup opportunities. This doesn't look anything like those wave elections back in 2006 or 2018.
If it doesn't look anything like those years, what does it look like?
Okay, so what does it look like? Well, let's take a look back at the generic congressional ballot. What was going on in Ipsos in October of 2024? Democrats were ahead by 2 points. Look at where we are now. Democrats ahead by 2 points among registered voters. At this particular point, this election cycle looks a lot more like 2024 than it does than either 2018 or 2006. And so, of course, Republicans actually held onto the House back in 2024. Will it happen this time around? We'll just have to wait and see. But for anyone who's writing the Republican House's political obituaries, hold the phone. This is a reality check. Republicans are still very much in the game.
Area, and that'll be quite a reality check, I think, for a lot of Democratic voters.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Life can change in an instant. One moment you're fine, the next, well, everything is different. You're left with questions, with pain, with the feeling that you've been wrong, and the system, well, it feels like it is built against you. This is why you need somebody that's on your side, somebody that understands, somebody that will fight for you. At Morgan & Morgan, they're not just lawyers, they're advocates. They're here to give you a voice when yours feels lost. They've recovered billions for people just like you. Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm, takes on all types of injury cases from car accidents to medical malpractice. They fight for your rights and the compensation that you deserve if you become their client so that you can focus on healing. They've achieved significant verdicts over the past few months for the victims involved in life-altering car crashes, like out in Florida, a $12 million verdict, which was over 34 times the highest insurance offer. And they work on a contingency fee basis, which means that you don't pay unless you win. It's really that simple, to be honest with you. So you can start your claim now with Morgan & Morgan at forthepeople.com/black conservative, which will be in the description below, right? The link will be in the description below, or you can scan the QR code on the screen with your phone's camera. Yeah, so I want you guys to understand just how bad it is for Democrats. They've made absolutely zilch, nada, nothing. They made no progress since October 2024, okay? Now, we're talking about months and months and months of nothing but anti-Trump fear-mongering. Oh, Trump is cutting your food stamps. Trump is taking away Medicaid. Trump is firing the liberals at all of these government institutions. Trump is shutting down NPR. Trump is opening up concentration camps. Trump is deporting illegal immigrants. He's deporting U.S. citizens and Latinos. Right? Nothing but boo-hoo, whining, and crying. Nothing but fear-mongering, okay? For over half a year. And Democrats have made zero progress. Wow. Now, the problem here for Democrats is that despite the fact that, again, they are quote unquote winning when it comes to the generic ballot, and that just depends on which one you look at, right? You do have some polls like this poll right here, the McLaughlin poll, that shows Republicans are actually ahead, okay? And President Trump has over 50% when it comes to approval rating. So again, it just depends on which polls you look at. But regardless, the trend here does not look good for Democrats in the sense that they should be a lot further ahead today, okay, than they are right now, right? Considering history and what has happened in the past when it comes to where Democrats were at this point in time going into the midterms and how they performed, right? They're severely underperforming where they have been before in the past going into the midterms at this moment in time, which is why when you look at the congressional seats race by race, right? Not talking about the generic ballot, right? We're talking about race by race, and you factor in the likelihood of who's going to win those races. That's why CNN is predicting that Republicans are actually going to pick up about 12 seats. 12 seats. So they're going to expand their majority, okay? And we already talked about how in the Senate, it's not looking good for Democrats in the Senate, right? The way the Senate maps, the way those are working out, is not looking good for Democrats in the Senate either. So there's a good chance that not only Democrats could just lose, right, but Republicans could significantly expand their majority in the House and give them more wiggle room to do more, right? To continue President Trump's agenda, which would be a worst case, a nightmare scenario for Democrats. And again, this is why I'm telling you that these people are now coming out here and claiming that the midterms are rigged, right? They've already waved the white flag because they know that they're not where they're supposed to be. The Democrats, they're in such bad shape. The DNC, they don't have any money. They're broke, right? They don't have any leadership, right? They don't have anything going for them at all. And that's where they're currently at. And, you know, a lot of people, you know, at this point are relying on this idea that, well, Trump is going to fail, right? And that's what they're relying on. Trump failing will save Democrats, but I wouldn't count on that. And I'm going to tell you guys why I wouldn't count on that. But first, I want to react to more cope here from CNN and Democrats over their terrible approval rating.
Brand new CNN poll out today shows that Democrats' favorability among Americans is at its lowest point in the history of CNN's polling back to 1992. Only 28% of Americans view the Democratic Party favorably. How can you guys turn that around?
I think you have to find, there'll never be a real party leader until we have a nominee for president, but we are moving into a midterms. And CNN has been covering who is motivated to show up in a midterm in the latest polling. And there's a lot of motivation there. I can go back to remember working in the 1996 congressional elections when we were trying to make up for just losing like 60 seats. After a president's elected, normally we do well. And I think that's what we're looking towards the future.
Yeah. So they keep talking about how, well, more Democrat-leaning voters are motivated to vote. Well, that may be true in the sense that they're motivated to vote against Trump. Now, the problem with that is that relies on people still hating Trump, hating him enough to go vote in the midterms at the time of the midterms. Now, I personally believe that there's not really anything I can imagine Trump doing over the next year or so that could really tank him that much, where the anti-Trump vote is going to be that significant, right? We didn't see it in 2024, right? And I'm just not sure we're going to see it in the midterms. And the reason why I say this is because ultimately at the end of the day, the main thing that this comes down to is the economy. If the economy is in good shape going into the midterms, if we do not have hyperinflation, if we do not have the same inflation that we saw under Democrats and Joe Biden, I think Trump's going to be fine. If Trump does not start any new war, right? We're not involved in any new wars. I think Trump is going to be fine. And right now, when you look at the economy, it's still a work in progress, but inflation is tame and people are still spending money, right? Consumers are still spending money.
Retail sales. Let's get right to CNN's Zane Asher. All right, that's an arrow pointing up. What does that mean?
Trade war? What trade war? What tariffs, John? Yes, the number actually came in pretty hot, 0.6% in June. And when you compare it to what we were expecting a rise of about 0.3%. That's coming in significantly hotter than expected. And that tells us that the U.S. economy, or rather the U.S. consumer in this country, is very resilient, despite all of the headwinds we've seen as it pertains to volatility, as it pertains to uncertainty with this trade war. They are still going out and they are shopping. When you think about this in the context of the retail sales numbers we've seen so far this year, I mean, they have been literally, I mean, John, look at that, all over the place. When you look at from January 2025 till now, part of the issue, look at March, right? It skyrocketed. Part of the reason is because people back then were front loading. They were going out and buying appliances, buying furniture, buying all the things that we import from China in advance of Liberation Day. And then it dipped dramatically in May. And that's because, well, listen, if you buy all the goods that you need earlier in the year, you don't necessarily need to buy them again in May. So this number we're seeing in June, right there, was really important for economists to see where things had sort of leveled out. And when you look at that number, it tells you that people are still shopping, despite everything that we've seen, all the headwinds, people are still going out. And so one of the things that sort of we still sort of continue to ask here at CNN is, why is it that this trade war, that all of the uncertainty is not trickling into the hard data just yet? What I found interesting as I peeled back the numbers is that, you know, even though appliances and electronics, we did see a slight dip. Obviously, those are very tariff sensitive. But clothing, for example, food services, people going out to bars and restaurants, that was actually significantly higher as well. And that shows us that discretionary spending is strong. People are shopping even for the items they don't necessarily need. So yes, overall, a very...
Yeah, so in other words, we don't have signs of an economy that is experiencing a significant slowdown, right? In the sense that people are spending money on things they don't necessarily need to spend money on, which again would suggest that just in general, the economy is not in bad shape, right? And as long as the economy is not in bad shape, if inflation is tame, right? If inflation does not tick back up, and in fact the economy gets better because of the big beautiful bill, okay, and how that's going to stimulate supply side growth. If there are no new wars, if the border stays secure, I mean, crime is also declining as well too, and some of that can be attributed to the DOJ, okay, and the job that they've done fighting, crime that people should care about that's happening on a day-to-day basis, right? There's a lot of criticisms of the DOJ, but again, crime seems to be getting a lot better under this DOJ, which is their main job, right? And also on top of that, you probably can attribute the mass deportation to crime going down as well too. So what is the motivation to vote against Trump, right? If all of these things hold up going into the midterms, what is the motivation, right? It's one thing to have the lunatics and the freaks out in the street, right, protesting against Trump, but most of those people don't vote, right? They don't vote, okay? What is the motivation to vote against Trump? Because they're not voting for Democrats. They're not voting for Democrats, right? They're not voting because they like Democrats. They're voting because they hate Trump. What is the motivation for those people to vote if the economy's good, if the border's still secure, if crime is down, if there's no new war? What's the motivation? What's the motivation? So again, that's the problem that Democrats are going to have. Relying on people hating Trump is not going to be enough, right? It wasn't enough in 2024, and I don't think it's going to be enough going into the midterms, but who knows? There's also the other side of this equation where when Trump is not on the ballot, Republicans tend to struggle, okay? And Republicans are going to have to figure that out. They're going to have to figure out how is it that they're going to get people out to vote when Trump is not on the ballot. Now, we're going to see there's some governor races coming up here soon. Those will be early tests, but Democrats are going to read too much into that. Those one-off elections, Republicans never really do good in those elections anyways, right? I think Republicans do a bad job at informing their voters and getting the voters out, okay, to vote in these off-year elections. So even if Democrats do well in those elections, which they might, it doesn't mean a damn thing, right? And that is something that people got to keep in mind. Because there are some elections that will be coming up here soon. Democrats may do well in those elections, but it doesn't mean anything, okay? What actually means something is when Republicans are actually focused and they're all working together to win elections, which will happen in the midterms when there's a national focus on the election. So, again, I just don't think that this whole hating Trump thing is going to carry Democrats like they believe that it will going into the midterms.
And Brian, what do you think? I mean, it is true. 72% of Democrats and Democratic-aligned voters say they are motivated to go in the midterms. How does your party tap in to Republican enthusiasm that right now seems wanting in a lot of ways?
Listen, I think we go back to what's always worked for us. Promises made, promises kept. As of right now, inflation is lower today than when President Trump took office. Gas prices are lower today than when President Trump took office. The price of eggs are lower. So he's going to make the economic message. We just need to make sure that it extends for another year and a half so that the voters continue to feel it. But I think that's the only way is, we made a promise to the American people. We've delivered on these promises, and that's what should be character. We'll see if it carries.
I'm sure you have something.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. I mean, at the end of the day, promises made, promises kept. Okay, we secured the border. We had the mass deportations. The economy is on the up and up. Inflation, at least as of right now, is not a big issue, right? There are no new wars, despite people, crying about what happened with Iran. That wasn't a full-scale war. There are no boots on the ground, okay? Crime is going down. The DOJ, they're doing their jobs when it comes to, catching criminals, right? And going after people who are committing crimes. Yeah, I mean, the fundamental core things that people actually care about, the GOP, Republicans, Trump, they're executing on that. So, people hopefully should be motivated to vote for that to continue, right? To continue to get results because we were not getting those results under the Biden administration. We were in a much different situation headed into the midterms under the Democrats than we are right now, okay? So I'm just saying people hopefully will be motivated by the fact that, hey, we are getting results, that things are changing.
Thing to say about the promises made, promises kept.
Look, if you talk to people right now about the big, beautiful bill that was passed and folks getting lost off of Medicare and SNAP, that by itself will be enough for me to run every midterm election I need to win.
What about your concerns, if any, about MAGA being so upset about the failure to release the Epstein files and the fact that Elon Musk comes out, says Donald Trump is in the Epstein files, which I have personally no evidence of, but he did say that. And then a month later, Pam Bondi and the Justice Department put out this document saying nothing to see here, folks. And a lot of people in MAGA world, as I don't need to tell you, Tucker Carlson all the way down, are very upset about this.
I mean, listen, we're 2 weeks into this. It doesn't seem like it's going to be stopped. I think the president has to figure out what type of valve that he can release so that some movement takes place, because the status quo is just not working within the base. Even going further, my mother, she only speaks Spanish, watches Spanish language, liberal to the extreme. She's asking me about the Epstein files and say, why isn't Donald Trump released?
How do you say Epstein files in Spanish?
I don't even know.
Epstein files?
Yeah, Epstein files.
What I was going to say is midterms are only about one thing. They've always been about one thing. It's motivation, because a big group of people don't show up to vote in an off-year election.
Right.
Motivation right now to me is more important than popularity. I think you will find your local candidate who they'll like, who's running for Congress or a candidate, and that's the biggest difference. Is we have to keep our people motivated, and every time Epstein or even giving war or giving things to Ukraine will make them mad. Hell, they're even mad because they think that Superman is woke. There's something making their base mad every day.
Anyways, yeah, what it actually really comes down to is the economy stupid, right? It comes down to the economy stupid. And ultimately today, I don't think that the motivation of hating Trump is going to be enough for Democrats if things continue to improve, okay, which things have improved under the Trump administration. We've gotten solid W's, solid wins. If things continue to improve, again, I'm not sure exactly what motivation these people are going to have to come out and to vote against Trump when their lives are getting better. But we'll see, right? We will see. I'm just saying that CNN is sending a very dire warning to Democrats that, you might not want to start taking victory laps because it's not looking good, right? So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.